Welcome to episode 6. I thought one of the biggest things that is kind of in media right now is this debate on Pilates and yoga, which I thought was a great chance for us to really dive deep for people that are listening in, people that have probably done Pilates or have done yoga or want to know the difference. Perhaps they haven't tried any of it, you know, and what is that difference? So I've got a majority of a yoga background, and I've practiced Pilates and I've practiced reformer. But you have studied Pilates as a teacher. So I'm going to let you kick this off.
Okay.
But I would love to know the history. I think we can kind of compare yoga and Pilates, but it'd be lovely to hear more of the history on where it all came from, because we have covered the history of yoga here and there. You know, we do it in teacher training and we know it's thousands of years old, but Pilates is new for me. So go ahead, kick us off. Let us know.
Yeah.
What is the history?
People would come to practice yoga and they'd say like, oh, it's okay, I've done Pilates. And I was like, oh, right, yeah, okay. Because I really wasn't too sure of the difference, if I'm perfectly honest. Started going to Pilates and I thought it'd be a good string to my bow. And also give something back as well to include in my yoga classes if it was so similar. So I enrolled on a Pilates teacher training, which I am very near to completing. So watch this space. So actually I do find it is quite different, but I do see the influence of yoga in it. So Joseph Pilates was born in Germany, I believe it was 1883. And he was a sickly child. He had asthma, he had rickets, which was rife at the time. I think he had some sort of arthritis. I'm not 100% sure it's rheumatoid. He decided then to get himself healthy. Exercise, good for the body, good for the brain. So he actually was doing yoga. So he started off with yoga. He was doing martial arts, meditation, kind of those more holistic, I guess, ways of exercising for the body and the mind. And then he continued to exercise, and that was what he was doing. Then he came over to the UK, I think it was 1912, and he was then...
quite a long history then. We are looking at over 100 years that this has been around now.
If you think 1883 was his birth, so you've got to think growing up, he was then practicing yoga. So that's kind of a huge influence on the way that he moved his body.
It's interesting that he was doing yoga in that early time as well. Though, you know, like, do you know any of his history on yoga? Or
no, I don't. Okay. From what I've kind of, for what I needed to know, it's quite vague. It was like he was doing yoga, he was doing martial arts, meditation, and I'm sure he's probably doing other things as well. So then he came to England in 1912 and keeping people exercising. He was then, I think, a circus performer, more of a contortionist.
He did. So he became one.
I'm not 100% sure. 100% sure. But that, you know, he was moving his body in all of those ways. And then he was during World War I, 1914. So he was then prisoner of war interned. And he was keeping fellow people exercising through the exercises that he was doing. And he was finding then that people who were more bedbound, they could do exercises on their bed. So that's where apparently the reformer came in. So he was using the bed springs. So the reformers are the big apparatus machines. And you've got that resistance. So I don't know how he did it, but he created then using these resistances. So that's how the reformer came
Was he ever mat Pilates? Like, I mean, we call it mat and reformer now because we have to. But do you know the history on mat Pilates versus when he started using those things?
He would have been mat Pilates.
That's where he would have started.
So that's where he was doing his exercises. So I don't know how or when he devised these 34 exercises, which at the time were called controlology.
Okay.
So that's what he would be teaching in his studios when he went he went to America, opened studios with his wife, Clara, and they were teaching these 34 exercises. And
like a set sequence?
Yeah, so a bit like our friend Bikram.
Oh, wow, Bikram yoga.
So again, you know, he found these 34 poses, exercises, not poses, that he would always teach in the same order.
And Bikram had 26
and 2 breathing exercises.
Okay. So I guess in some ways there's a methodology that it started off as a methodology, I think, with yoga as well, because Ashtanga is a series, and that would be the oldest form that we know. And then of course all of these other ones have come from it.
Yeah.
So I guess there's something perhaps in rhythm series and sequences, you know, like especially back then when things were forming.
I mean, he was very strict as well, apparently.
Yeah.
Liked to wear a bit like Bikram. Obviously, I know a lot about Bikram because that's my background.
Yeah.
But from what I can make out, he was still quite scantily clad.
Okay.
I think very strict as well. And, you know, in the days gone by.
He's influenced by his teachers. I wonder if they're influenced by, because also like, yoga was considered like Indian gymnastics, right? And so there's a little bit of that in these teachers and these students. So that's so interesting, because I didn't know that it came from Joseph Pilates. I've heard his name. Yeah. I didn't know he came from yoga as a background. I didn't know that it was a set sequence, you know? So there must be something back then during those times.
And he would have carried his yoga background, I think, through when he was very much like a healthy body and a healthy mind. Yeah. He kind of realised they had to work together. So with controlology, I think it was more those fine movements. So then when he opened up his studios, I think it was the athletes, the gymnasts that would go because they could really
contort their bodies.
Exactly, yeah.
Which makes sense also in modern day yoga studios, or modern day, like our time, 10, 15 years ago, there would be those power yoga studios that really catered to people that were from an athletic background. So for my yoga studio, it was opened up by a dancer.
Right.
Or an ex-dancer that found yoga as a rehabilitation from ballet, years of, you know, like, in some ways, you know, body abuse, because you've got to go through the competition of it. Sure. So she found yoga as a therapeutic method, and then combined yoga and ballet and dance in some ways. But again, it would really bring in a lot more athletes, surfers, gymnasts, those that also had used their bodies for competitive sport and then found yoga as a therapeutic. So she kind of got those people together in her studio. So it sounds really interesting, because now we are a lot more inclusive and there are different kinds of versions of studios. But I think that there were more niche studios as well, right? For those that needed.
But I think just like yoga as well, I think Pilates has evolved because it's had to. So eventually, after Joseph Pilates passed, the controlology then was kind of known more as Pilates, as in Joseph Pilates. So it had always been controlology, and then it became Pilates.
So he's calling it controlology because he's not naming it after himself, but it's kind of like a legacy now.
Yeah, so it's now kind of, that's what I believe it to be.
Yeah.
And again, it's just kind of that movement of the body. And you can see where they do blend together, but you can also see where they slightly are different. So I would say, if someone said, how do you have to define it? Yeah. I would say Pilates is more centered around our core, so everything apart from our limbs to a degree, where I think yoga is a lot more expressionate, more flexibility.
Well, I wanted to actually, because I didn't know, I wanted to add in because I didn't know what Pilates was until, or what it felt like, or what it was until I started to explore and take classes. And so that's kind of what I would have said it. I thought Pilates felt very functional, very literal. You had the balls, you've got the, you can either be talking about reformer and having the springs and the resistance and the bands and things like that, or you could be talking mat Pilates, same thing. You've got these props that you're using, and you can feel more because it's quite literally, you've got to hold, pull, and move and work these props.
Yeah.
And so I felt it was very core, hip. It's very stabilizing for your cores and your core and your hips. And but then when I translated it to yoga, particularly hot yoga, but yoga in general, I felt like yoga was giving me connected exercise. And this was very literal, functional, and targeted. And I think that that's what I like, because to be honest, yoga was always about, traditional yoga was always about the core, but they would call it Mula Bandh.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uddiyana Bandh, like lower abdominals, upper abdominals, the fire, like it was very energetically talked about, and it was talked about in Sanskrit. So I think that even though core yoga is a major component, like core is a major component for Ashtanga and these stronger power series, we don't get the target as much as what Pilates does. It's like it's pulled the core section out of it and it's made it more accessible. I'm assuming the words that we're using, the props that we're using, it just feels so much more targeted. So I would say it gave me a laser focus on these areas, even though I knew I was igniting my core and stabilizing my hips in yoga. I feel like it gave me a very laser focus on this section of my body.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was missing a whole body experience. Although Reformer will do arms and shoulders, of course.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think now, like anything, I think Pilates has evolved as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, but I don't find as many Pilates teachers now that teach pure Joseph Pilates.
Yeah, that makes
34 exercises in the same order.
No, because it's a bit flows a little bit. They flow a little bit as well, right?
People want something that's a little different. So people are putting the weights in to get the arms moving.
Yeah, of course.
And as we've spoken about before, how the link goes back to functional body movements, whether it's yoga, whether it's Pilates, or whether we're looking at physios. So Pilates has kind of worked his way into that physiotherapy because it's a functional movement.
Yeah.
So now I think that's where people see that crossover of saying, well, it looks like yoga because it's a yoga pose. And it's kind of like, well, it is a yoga pose, but we're all kind of working the body in the same way.
Yeah. There's it's very hard. You do have to do a few classes of each really to kind of feel and understand what that difference is.
Yeah.
But I know from my own experience, I felt that Pilates was more literal, targeted, functional, accessible. It felt not necessarily more like a workout, but it was just more, it was just cleaner. It was just a cleaner understanding of what we were doing and how we were doing things, even if we flowed or we changed up the sequence. Whereas yoga, I felt like my body was like, if you have experience with this, or if anyone has got experience with it, there's like a deep tissue massage. That's what hot yoga does for me. I feel like it does get me into, well, we know this now, but the fascia and the deeper layers.
Yeah.
And I also feel like everything is tingling, like everything is working. When I'm done with a hot yoga class or a power yoga class, particularly, right? We're not talking too much about restorative yoga and these other softer kinds. But if I was to go into a hot power yoga class, there's like the whole body feels like it's vibrant and awake.
Yeah, but do you not think that's the love of the yoga as well, that you're moving that prana,
and
that
it could
life
be breathing,
energy.
and it could be the breathing.
The breathing is different, totally. But then, you still have got those bandhas in your Pilates. Yeah. You're still pulling up the pelvic floor, front, middle, back for us ladies.
And I've understood it more with Pilates.
Yeah.
So I've been even if I was arm balancing and working my core before Pilates and doing this connected, arm balance, like whatever the gymnastics looking yoga is, I felt I could really feel like, I just felt like it was a lot more. It was like literally just taking a highlighter and really just highlighting this section of my body when I went to Pilates, and it just enhanced what I was doing with yoga.
Yeah. I think I found my bandhas or my kind of centering more in Pilates.
Yeah, I think that it
maybe because it's slower, and it is more precise. And I would say
precise
the
is a
range
good word.
of movement is less in Pilates. So
It's
when
true.
I first did it, I was kind of like, probably a bit like yoga, I don't get this.
Oh my God,
I didn't read a book though, so I didn't read a book.
I got in
just did
trouble.
it.
I was getting in trouble in class because I'm like, I need my hips to move wider than this because it's centered and there's limited range of movement.
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, I need my legs to be here, my arms to be here. They're like, no, this is not yoga.
And then when I understood it, I was kind of like, I get it. So I'm using flexibility over that core strength. And having that ability to say, if you're doing like a hip twist, your legs, your knees really only going out like 2 or 3 o'clock. Well, I wanted mine to go out to like the 1/4 on the clock because I could.
Exactly.
But then was my other hip really stable?
Exactly that as well.
And we have that awareness because that's what we would teach in yoga. But it was kind of like, oh, actually, I don't need to go to my full range. It's not about the flexibility here.
Yeah.
It's more about controlled, which is why it's probably called controlology. So it did teach me actually that less can be more. And I found it harder.
That is true. That is true. I think that you're right because you can't just sink into flexibility, which is what my body would have done anyway.
Yeah.
But I will say though, I do get the snap, crackles, and pops, like when your lower back has a little snap, crackle, and pop, like it just feels good, like a release. That's why I would go to my maximum range of movement is because it just it gets things out of my body and it just feels a lot more limber. Yeah. So that's why I would go to my range of like my full range of movement if I was putting my legs to one side, but it wouldn't have helped my strength.
No.
Again, it's overuse of flexibility.
Yeah.
Whereas Pilates is very structured and not overusing your flexibility.
But don't forget as well, you're like one of these dancers because you have got that movement and that flexibility that would have gone to a Pilates class for exactly that, to help them becoming injured.
Exactly.
To help them have that control rather than just flinging their body around. Because as a dancer, they become very mobile. You know, the ligaments are long, tendons.
Well, you've got a higher risk of postpartum, well, not necessarily diastasis, that as well. But my thing was, it was pelvic girdle pain.
Yeah.
Right. So like the pelvis is shifted. So Pilates would have been a rehab for me to keep everything really centered. Yeah. But then saying that, yoga therapeutics also does that. So this is really hard, right? Like I
was about to say, there is that crossover, because I know personally when I talk about yoga, I'm talking more about a real strongish physical practice of a lot of movement. And I would probably say the crossover of Pilates and yoga therapeutics, I would say they blend a lot closer because it's rehabilitation.
I've just got some insight. I feel like yoga maybe was too much range of movement and too much of that. It allows a lot of that over flexibility. So it's like Pilates is the balance for that.
Yeah.
But then I feel like yoga rehab, like yoga therapeutics, what they're doing is they're kind of scaling it back and being really like slow in their approach, which is like what Pilates does. It's like literally they're kind of, I guess it's all evolved over the last 100 years. It has evolved. Pilates does look a little bit more like yoga because there's a lot more mind, body, breath in Pilates now that I wouldn't say wasn't normally there, because if Pilates was based on mind, body, breath, because that's you had said that, right? He
was very much about like the body and the mind
and the spirit as well.
I'm not sure about the spirit, but I think it's more that the body and the mind, you know, they need to move, they need to be kind of together, find that kind of like that little bit of peace. I'm not sure about the spirit side of it, whether it's meant to be a spiritual practice. I don't personally think it was. But coming back to kind of like maybe it is looking a little bit more like yoga, I think it's because you're always trying to rewrite that wheel. So again, people are moving away from that classical mat-based Pilates, putting in the weights. And it's kind of like, how else could I do a hip twist? Oh, I could do it standing. So just like movement of the hip.
Yeah.
So the hip stays steady. It's just kind of everything, or the knee or leg moving in or out.
Yeah.
So it's finding other functional ways to create that same thing. Where Josie's Pilates, again, was those 34 repeated.
And I think it was less commercial, right? Like, so at this point now, over the last 20, 30, 40 years of studios, boutique fitness, and you have CrossFit studios, like they are like, you know, they're not just a gym, they're very like specific, right?
Yeah.
And you've got hot yoga or regular yoga or Pilates studios. Like, I think that for commercial purposes as well, like I think we can get bored with one kind of fitness. So I do think it's in our best interest for us to feel invigorated, that we can add different things. So hot yoga or yoga is being a little bit more functional with their props when you go into like more yoga therapeutics. And then Pilates is being a little bit more relaxed in a sense that, you know, like Pilates can actually be a little bit more relaxing. Actually, it's going to lead us to the next topic, but I've been taught Pilates by a physio-based Pilates teacher. So she's come from physio, and it's physio and Pilates, right? So this is going to be more rehab and a little bit more like this. But then I've also been taught Pilates by yoga teachers that are Pilates teachers. So now if you have someone like you that have done both yoga and Pilates, coming to a class for you would be, I would see the crossover with yoga, I'm sure, because it lives and breathes inside of you as well, right? And so I feel like we can talk more about like our teachers and what they've said at the studio about having Pilates and then doing yoga teacher training, which is a great lead into that.
Yeah.
But I think that there's so much that we've experienced, even as a yoga teacher now who's done Pilates for a while. I can see that power yoga, I'm a lot, like there's Pilates sequences in my power yoga class so that it's very core targeted. And that would have been influenced by power yoga, but power yoga was influenced by Pilates. That's how power yoga came to be. So I think that this is hard for us to really differentiate.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much crossover, but we can go into teachers and their experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, if you think about like the different Pilates out there, where I did my Pilates teacher training, and it is a physio-led Pilates training. So it is the idea of, there actually, I think it's 9 of the exercises that they don't teach in its pure form. For the simple reason, if you're not an athlete, somebody who's got flexibility, mobility, it's just deemed as dangerous.
Wow, yeah.
You know, one of them, you know, rocking back and forth, holding your big toes, it might be something that you would teach in a power yoga class, because people are more experienced. They're not coming to you because they're injured. I mean, they're going to be a bit crazy if you're injured, go to a power yoga class.
No, exactly that.
And some of them, they were just taken to the extreme, but they would teach a form of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting that we did talk to our teachers at the studio, and that quite a few started with Pilates, but then they became yoga teachers.
I was quite surprised.
Yeah.
We just opened like a general chat saying about, and they were like, oh yeah, I've been doing it for like 20 years. I was like, I never knew that. I knew they did it, but I didn't know. And then it's like, but I did my yoga teacher training. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah,
because it came about because we wanted, I think it would be great for us, you know, to have a workshop where we are differentiating yoga and Pilates and bringing, and that's actually how the conversation came in, because we're adding this yoga sculpt, which again is commercial. Yoga sculpt is technically Pilates. If you were to really look at that overlap, yoga sculpt very similarly looks like mat Pilates, because they're adding in those low density weights and, you know, like a little bit more of resistance.
And I say it's kind of the repetition of that same exercise, where if it's like a true power class, you tend to be moving from one posture to the other, where in our Pilates and even with the the sculpt classes, it is kind of repetition, which again is a lot more core focused.
Looking back at my teaching, when I'm a power yoga teacher, I can definitely see that I actually embody Pilates style without realizing that I did. But again, it would have come from my teachers who would have been influenced, because power yoga came from Baron Baptiste in the States. And he was also like, there was an influence of different fitness disciplines, and Pilates and martial arts do tend to, Pilates, yoga, martial arts, there is a lot of history from a lot of these fathers that create their next stage of yoga or Pilates or whatever they're doing. But when I had spoken to teachers, because I was wondering how you go from Pilates into yoga, and a few of the conversations came into wellness. And that kind of helps us, I guess, in some ways depict the layers, because I think at this point we probably confuse the audience because we haven't really said like, what is the difference? But of course, I'm teasing. We're just having discussion, conversation, right? But perhaps there are layers. Perhaps it is physical, functional, literal, accessible, steady, controlled, and then it goes into dance, gymnastics, movement, you know what I mean? And then perhaps it's like that full range of movement with yoga, but then it goes into the longer you do it, the more you're breathing, the more you're getting into the deeper tissues. Perhaps there is a spiritual awakening or a deeper purpose or understanding of who you are, or whatever it is that yoga tells us happens the more you get into your body and breath.
I think with yoga as well, it is more of a lifestyle as well, isn't it?
Oh no, Pilates is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle. But no, I know what you're saying. I absolutely, because I'm not a Pilates, I'm a yoga lifestyle girl for sure.
I mean, we've obviously in yoga got our 8 limbs of yoga. I don't know of any such kind of like build up really in the Pilates. Obviously we had like our 5 kind of start work. So we're looking at centering, breath, rib cage placement, of how we kind of find that balance. But we don't really talk about like how we treat ourselves, moral conduct, how we treat others. You know what I mean? That staggering layer
I understand.
of how we move into our movement, which is like 3rd on the asana, on the 8 limbs, before then going into our breath work. Before then we find our focus, our concentration.
Just a quick one. So in the 8 limbs, just in case anyone's listening and they're not sure. So we start with moral conduct. So our 5 ways that we are with ourselves, or is it the world first? I think it's the yamas and the niyamas is what we're talking about. And it's 5 acts of how we are with ourselves and 5 acts of how we are with the world, right? So that's like the 10 commandments, if you will. So that's number 1 and 2. Number 3 is asana. So that's the posture, and that's the yoga practice that we're seeing. Then we've got pranayama, which is breathing, but it's not just breath, simple. This is like traditional yogic breath that is now a little bit intense sometimes as well, right? Then you've got dharana, dhyana. Okay, hold on one second. No, pratyahara.
That's it, withdrawing
pratyahara,
senses.
number 5. So you start withdrawing your senses, and now basically you're starting to take control of your nervous system. So you're not just constantly distracted. It's just like the first stage, I think, of mindfulness, pratyahara, right? Then you go into dharana and dhyana, and now this is concentration. So now you're focusing more. Now you're getting into meditation, number 7. Meditative state. And then number 8, samadhi, is connection. Enlightenment. But again, different ways. I feel like it's a connection to yourself. I feel like you really truly understand your behaviors because it's embedded as part of it. So now what are you saying in the 5? So this is more like centering for fitness.
It's just the way that we would set up to practice.
Okay.
So where we would say like coming into mounting pose, it's kind of like we're always working around our center. So, rib cage placement, making sure the ribs aren't flaring out. So it is more of it's not like a commandment, which is where I'm trying to differentiate that I think with the yoga practice, it is more a living style, as in you are, if you wanted to, you embrace those 8 limbs.
Yeah. In a sense that you're embodying a personality of wellness or, non-harming and whatever they say.
Well, I would say that Pilates, okay, because you're breathing. So that is what we need to do. But you're breathing in a way that works to utilize the powerhouse.
It's so more functional breath.
Of course, it's a lateral breath where we would probably breathe a little bit different. They breathe through the mouth on the exhale.
So for us in yoga, nasal breathing is for awakening the fire. What is that fire? It's our pelvic floor, but ultimately that they always talk energetically, right? In these elemental terms. So nasal breath is meant to fire us up from the inside, stroke that Agni, create that fire, create the core. And then it's meant to build stamina. So we're supposed to stay in and out through the nose, from what I understand and from what my teachers have said, because it keeps it all. So we don't want to exhale out through the mouth because we'll lose stamina. So what is the science? Because the science for yoga or wellness yoga is that deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing will activate the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the one cranial nerve that connects through your body. And it kind of just looks like arms, like branches of a tree. It comes down and that's for wellness. That's the science of wellness. Deep breathing, master your breath, master your emotions. Again, it kind of comes into personality, behavior, and wellness. Yeah. Tell me about the breath of Pilates.
I mean,
and the behind the scenes.
As well is it's kind of the same point in yoga. We just want people to breathe.
Sure.
So kind of, I get the impression that it is about using the controlled movements and then finding the breath pattern afterwards. So when we breathe on an exhale on effort in Pilates. So then we're pulling the pelvic floor up. So you're thinking that's working with the diaphragm then to find that deep, solid core.
It makes sense.
So that's why we do it.
It's functional breathing for functional movement to enhance.
So then it's like,
it's still stamina, right?
Yeah. And you just got, it's not like, it's a nice control through the mouth.
Yeah.
So the idea is bandhas pulling up, pelvic floor working with, the cylinder of the diaphragm.
Yeah.
So it's just the power. That's where the power comes on exertion.
And it makes sense. And that's what yoga was saying, but in a different energetic way, I think.
And then when you've got that, your pelvic floor pulled up, you've got your activation of those deep core muscles, your transverse abdominis, again, which is the power. It's the same in yoga.
Yeah, it is such. But again, different. I just don't think I think where yoga could be at a disservice is that it does come from Sanskrit. It comes from terminology that may not translate as effectively as Pilates. And of course, it's slightly different. But I do think that ultimately they are saying the same thing. If you were just to take the asana posture out of it, yoga was trying to get our posture to align up. Sure, for spiritual purposes, for meditation, the purpose was different. But ultimately, it knew the science of the body on how you need to ignite your core and how you do need to use your core to move. Like you want core-based movement, even off of the mat when you lean down to pick something up. This is where we're at right now in teacher training, is in this anatomy module. One of the homework exercises is observe how you use your body in time and space. And a lot of people a lot of the students had come back and said, I don't bend my knees when I pick things up. And again, it's just about like, how do you use your whole body and your core and, your hips and your knees to move through daily life? So I think both will give you postural support.
Yeah.
Both will allow you to start learning to breathe again, whichever way, shape, or form. They're both good for joints, right? It's like low impact. They both are good for rehab and for rehabilitating from injuries,
when you're talking
as well as powering up.
Yeah. So I think, again, that crossover of therapeutic yogicks and Pilates, because I do think Pilates is very good for rehabilitation, which is why the exercises are used in physiotherapy, and why people, you know, will gravitate from physiotherapy to Pilates classes.
Makes sense. And then eventually yoga.
No, and then they go to yoga therapeutics. And then they go like, oh, this is amazing. Now I can move a little bit more. So they
now we're meditating with Sarah.
Yeah. And, you know, maybe that's why because Joseph Pilates did have that influence of yoga, that he, you know, he knew all of these benefits, but he's taking it more to exercise, which is why they're called exercises.
3. Yeah.
We call them asana postures. Yeah. We don't call them exercises because we see them from a different angle so to speak. So I do think the crossover is there, but when you then come from a Pilates, I would say mat-based more than reformer, and if it's a true traditional Joseph Pilates, then suddenly you're coming into a fast-paced power 2 class. It's like, whoa, that's not the same at all. Yeah.
And I think, again, coming back to it, there are different levels, there are different stages. You're going to start at yoga and Pilates as a rehab.
Yeah.
You can use them as power, like to, you know, there's a power version of both of them, right?
Totally.
Like there's a fitness version for both of them.
Yeah. Because in one of our training days, it was towards the last day, our teacher, Sarah, she's like, right, I'm going to teach you like a higher level class today. Oh my God, I was dying.
Yeah, it's hard.
It was really tough.
Yeah, it really is.
That was not traditional Joseph Pilates. Yeah. It was through APPI. So it was like, so that's the Australian Physiotherapy Pilates Institute. So it was kind of just functional movement.
Yeah.
It was so hard.
But do you know what, actually, Emma is, she's studying to be a physio at the studio. So Emma's one of our teachers, and she is studying to be a physiotherapist. And she's also really keen on yoga rehabilitation. And we've had feedback for class that her class is really hard. It's yoga, it's therapeutics, but it's hard. Or at least the functional movement side of it is hard. But actually rehab is hard. Like obviously going into it with an injury that you're trying to rehabilitate, that's going to be hard. But slow, controlled movement repetitively is really hard work. But we say that in yoga as well, though, because again, we'll do it fast. Like I remember my teachers, it's like half moon, like the faster ones where you're going from a half moon, standing balance, warrior 2. Actually, that's hard in a cardio way. Yeah. But as soon as you go to hatha, 5 breaths, steady movement, yoga becomes harder because now you can't cheat or hang out or whatever it is.
Well, you're kind of fatiguing those muscles, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So, you know, if you're doing something in Pilates and you're really focusing on the, you know, the glute med, and you're kind of like keep opening your leg. The first 2, you're like, it's okay. And now do a few more. And we always say, you know, you stop when you lose your center.
Yeah.
But your glutes going, like, whoa. Yeah. At least sometimes in yoga, it feels like a bit of respite.
Yeah, no, I know. I think, and you do get your child poses every once in a while and things like that. Yeah, I think I will say that I definitely, well, with reformer Pilates in particular, because they also have the jump boards. And again, this is maybe more modern or like an evolvement of reformer Pilates with a jump board, because now it's missing, you know, maybe the complaint is that I love reformer Pilates, but my heart rate doesn't lift.
Right.
So now you've got the jump board and you've got these classes where you're jumping.
So I've never done that. So you're jumping off of a board.
Yeah. So it's not the Pilates bed.
Yeah.
So you're on the Pilates bed and you are lying down.
Okay.
But where your feet are, there's a board. Okay. And so your feet are against this board. So you're still lying down on this bed, but your feet now are against something.
So it's like a leg press.
Exactly, like a leg press. And now you're jumping with the springs in different resistance levels, right? So yellow, red, blues, whatever it is that you guys do in your world. But either way, ultimately it's resistance, different springs. And so now you're jumping one leg at a time or 2 legs at a time, or you're jumping with your feet together and then apart and then together and then apart. So there's different exercises, but now your heart rate is lifted. So you're lying down, but your heart rate's lifted. So now you've got the cardio aspect of reformer Pilates where people will say like I love it for strength. I love it for core, but I don't get the cardio.
Yeah.
Yoga, I get this. But I'm coming to understand that every fitness discipline is giving you what you're missing, because CrossFit is doing a little bit more wellness now and a little bit more because your muscles are fatiguing and you are overusing. And so you need those rest and recovery days. And what do they look like? They look like yoga days.
Yeah.
Do you know? And so now I think ultimately they're kind of all finding a version of breath, exercise, cardio, rehabilitation. I mean, I think ultimately whatever you are gravitating to, I'm pretty sure there's a low version, high version, cardio version, rest version of anything now, really, right?
It's just renaming, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, we've seen it a long time ago, you know, even footballers going on, they stretch and you're like, oh, that's yoga.
Yeah, I know.
And it's because we know yoga. So we're like, oh, they're doing what we do.
Exactly. Or you go to a physio office like we talked about last time. You're like, that's yoga.
Yeah.
Actually, technically it's Pilates, but.
Well, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. That now becomes, that rehab that was Pilates, it's yoga. And then just that cycle around. Again, it's functional movement.
It is. And you know what? It's yoga since the beginning of time was meant to be moving your body because the traditional yoga people that were drawing cave, or like they were drawing in caves, like, because that's where we first started seeing these postures. It's now, we're not talking 2000, we're talking 5,000 years ago. They're starting to see that there's drawings of yoga postures on cave walls. Now, but let's just take it back to very basics. They felt that their body was tightening or stiffening, even if it was for meditation and for prayer.
Yeah.
Regardless, they were seeing that their body was accumulating some kind of residue, some kind of stiffness, some kind of tension, and you need to move your body. And again, a long time ago as well, there would be, you would have warriors, because you would be, there would be like these fights, right? Like you wouldn't have, like we have war now with, you know, all different kinds of weaponry. But at the time, there wasn't a lot of weaponry unless you were like carving out, I'm assuming like your spearheads and stuff. But you were a warrior. Your body had to be your tool. So really, if we take it down to the very basic, it's that the body needs to move, whether it's rehabilitation or you got to get your heart rate up. And I think we would have moved our bodies more because we would have used it more for like farming and things like that. So now but of course you could always be uneven. You could always farm with one hand over and over again, right? So you would always want a balanced approach. So I think exercise was really what asana was meant to be. I think we call it postures, but it was a way to keep your body strong and healthy. And then like it was pushed against a backdrop of living well, right? So I think yoga just is going to take it to wellness living. Ultimately, like what is yoga now compared to everything else?
I think it's intuition as well, isn't it? You're getting more understanding of your body, and you start then, when you really listen to it, it's like, oh, it needs to do this, it needs to do that. And like say years ago, people were constantly moving.
Yeah.
Where now
we're sitting.
Is what we do.
We're sitting.
We now have chairs and
everything's at our fingertips.
It is, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, we don't move our bodies as we used to, which in turn, we don't breathe as well as we used to.
Yeah. And I think also, unless I'm not thinking of anything else in my mind, I think that tension, you can still get an injury with Pilates. And so I know a lot of teachers that have talked about overusing muscles functionally and still getting the injury. So then yogas come in to help with the injury. And I think the only thing it is relaxation, because they say you need three things for a muscle. You need the isometric, isotonic, right, to build strength. So isometric, isotonic, meaning if it's repetition, you're building strength that way, or you're holding your arm out against gravity and there's your resistance. So that's strength. So you need, for the muscles need strength. Then we find out later on that the muscles need flexibility. So now on top of the strength building, you get a few stretches here and there, right? Like, and then we started to really look at flexibility as something. But where I think that yoga is known for is the third thing that a muscle needs is relaxation. So here is where bringing it to, and again, it's a love for yoga for sure, but it's also, I'm trying to understand us as yoga teachers and the backdrop to everything else. And when I've studied rehabilitation as well, the muscle, if at the very deep layer is tense, you've got a muscle here, like the nerves at the inside of the muscle is like this, right? It's going to give a little bit on the outside. So you're going to have the ability to move it. So there's your flexibility and there's your strength. You're moving it and you're getting the strength. But at the deeper layer, if the muscle is still tense or restricted in some way based on our thoughts, our mindset, our stress levels, then we are prone to injury no matter what, because what we're missing is deep relaxation. And that is the hard bit, because I think that everything gives you a lot of movement in modern day life, because I do think that we do like to move, and I don't think our inner beliefs will allow us to just take a nap in the middle of the day or really deeply relax. I think that it's a really hard thing for us to do. But I guess really ultimately, that's what makes yoga different, is that it is going to have a deep relaxation component. And it is the third missing link to what the muscles do need. They do need all three. They need to relax. They need to stretch and mobilize at the joints, and they need to get strong. And I think that that's what recovery days are. That's why you'll see yoga looking like breath stretches, and relaxation across everywhere else, because those are your recovery days, because you've got to recover the muscle, because you are going to be prone to adrenal fatigue, muscular fatigue. You are going to be prone to that. Athletes are prone to that, you know? Totally. So I do think that that's, I've really loved Pilates for being very focused, where yoga was a lot more all body. And so this gave me the focus at that low impact, safe for joints, that kind of realm, you know, so it was really good. But I do think that for me, like we talked about it as a lifestyle, I am missing then the deep relaxation. I am missing the meditation, but I've taken it to that level. I've taken it to that stage.
I mean, I think, you know, movement and breath can be meditative anyway. So again, there is that crossover. Moving meditation kind of. But again, there's no substitute for relaxation though, unless you're relaxing, right? Like ultimately there's no substitute. And what would that be? That would be like your yoga nidras. Right? And
more restorative yoga. And restorative yoga.
Cuddled up on a bolster.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, but it's not really, I mean, of course, it's good to highlight the difference. So it's not, it's not about one being better than the other. This conversation really needed to be, what is it? Because, you know, I've never really had a chance to explore it. And it did raise eyebrows for us when we found out teachers started Pilates and then became yoga teachers. What was that reason? I mean, that it's good for us to know, especially as we do mentor and we do teach, you know, like it's given me a new view, and I hope our audience and people that are listening, I hope it's helped them kind of really compartmentalize or, you know, see the bigger backdrop.
And please do note on any kind of like way that you can, any comments like, did we actually clarify what is the difference between
have we just been talking
or have we just gone round in this circle going like, actually I'm chasing my tail, I still don't know. So if you've got any great ways to make that quite clear to us,
please do.
Appreciated.
Or ask any questions on what we might have said. But no, I think this has been great, because I do think that I didn't know the history of where Pilates came from. And I didn't know his history of not being a well child and how it all kind of evolved. As much as I know that fitness has evolved over the years, commercially, for business, for, you know, people's needs, whatever the reason, I've never really thought and talked about it and how much there's so many versions of everything now, you know? And I mean, ultimately, just go move, right? Ultimately, you want to move in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You want to be breathing in some way, shape, or form. I mean, really, that is the base.
Yeah.
But this is a yoga studio. It is a yoga podcast. It is about going beyond the mat and being able to compare yoga to other forms of exercise. And that is one of the things that I do ask our teacher trainees on the course is, what makes yoga different from other forms of exercise? Because that is an important thing for us to understand, that it is against a bigger backdrop.
Yeah.
We are working with deep relaxation. So it's good for them to know. And we are working with fascia, right? We're working with connective tissue. And that is a whole host of new things, because there's like they're saying that our fascia, again, for audience purposes, what is fascia? How have you described it? Because we've heard it
so many different ways. It's kind of like a silvery, gloopy substance. So the connective tissues, wrapping around muscles, your literally ligaments, tendons, giving you shape, giving you form. It's not as hydrated as our muscle. It holds trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
So much. Yeah.
I've heard, like, in those very early stages, which is not 100% accurate, but it's helpful in the early stages. I've heard it been described like the skin on a sausage, right?
Yeah.
Like it's that layer where all the meat goes in and it's just like that thin, clear type of thing. But it makes sense because your bones and your muscles are embodied around this bag or this casing or whatever it is. But exactly that.
It's like slide and glide as well as your insides, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like it's mucus, basically.
Well, somebody did say like it's a snotty feeling.
Exactly.
I was trying not to say snotty feeling.
Yeah, exactly that. But, you know, sometimes you just got to describe it to like exactly that, you know? So, yeah, I've heard it be like more of that mucus. It's rigid in places when there is trauma and scar tissue, and it's gliding in some places. But what they thought it was, an anatomy people, I'm just going to use people for today because nothing else is coming to my mind. Anatomy people, scientists, anyone that was looking at or creating anatomy books, when they were looking at the muscles and the bones, they wanted to get through the fascia. They thought it was filler tissue. So they wanted to get past the fascia to the bones and the muscles, like the good stuff. And again, because it's more literal, and because you've got your bones and you've got however many bones there are and you've got however many muscles there are. Fascia is not literal. It's figurative. There's still not an understanding. How is it your second brain and it's wrapped around your body? How does it hold muscle memory? But that's actually where your muscle memory comes from. Yeah. That's actually where your trauma is felt, is actually in the body, in the fascia. So now I think anything that has too many shades of gray is really hard. I think that ultimately, because there is still no answers, they still don't know. And that's really hard for experts to not be able to really answer all these questions that we might have when it comes to the human body and science and things. But I do think that yoga has influenced a lot of research in universities and stuff on wellness, and fascia now has been looked at because, again, yin yoga, you know, we're working with connective tissue. There's just been a lot more research behind the scenes, but still not a lot of answers. But I think but that's what I do talk about with my teacher trainees, and we do watch videos on things, and it doesn't answer fully any questions, because the videos itself are also telling us what they know, but also saying that there's a lot that's unknown when it comes to the mind-body connection, when it comes to fascia, when it comes to connective tissue, and then the deeper layers of deep relaxation, the brain, etc. So I think that there's still a mystery, you know, on all of that. But yeah, it's great. I think that we have really just put it against some kind of backdrop. I hope it's been great for people who have been listening. It's been good for me to go around in these circles and realize that, you know, we're probably saying the same thing, all of us, right? Ultimately.
And me too. I still don't know.
Yeah, we still don't. Well, graduate your program. Let's see what we can do once you're on the other side of this. But I mean, I think we would be looking at more like these yoga sculpt classes, more of the yoga rehab, or specific Pilates, you know, like wherever that teacher graduates from and where they go, their journey could overlap. So yours in particular is yoga and Pilates, but I'm sure people are taking Pilates or yoga teacher training courses, they'll add it on to whatever it is that they know and what they do, right? And then comes another chapter and another
more
way.
Involvement.
Exactly. And we say that with the teachers as well, because we'll have people come in, a male swimmer, right, as one of the students a few years ago. And another one was a dancer, like on TV, like Dancing with the Stars. So you've got, so the male yoga teacher that came in with swimming wanted to take yoga into his swim club for males that are swimming. Yeah. So he's going to now enhance his community. Same thing with dance. You're getting perhaps injured dancers or things like that, moving towards wellness and recovery. And so I think that that's so natural for us to take whatever training or whatever learning and then just add it to what we do, right? Like, because we do have people come in during those interview processes saying that yoga's done something for particularly yoga teacher training, just because that's what we've been doing. But they say, it's done something for my wellness and I want to give back. I want to do it at my office, or I want to do it for children, or I want to do it for the elderly because my grandma, I saw her in the nursing home and yoga really helped her, or yoga could have helped her. Yeah. You know, everyone's got a personal story about what they're bringing it. And that's Joseph Pilates as we come full circle. Yeah. That's exactly what he did, right? It was something that was wellness for him.
Yeah. But I think it comes back to, it's kind of what your passion is, whether it be one or the other, you still see its benefit and how you can share that with other people.
Exactly. And I think that's a really great place to, end, like it's a great end note, because really it's about the positivity of movement and sharing whatever impacts you. And if it helps other people, then that's really the main thing. And for me, I was more mental, emotional health and wellness. And so I think that's what yoga's done for me in particular. It is that it's helped my own personal mental, emotional health, and it helped me get strong in the mental, emotional sense. So physically, I knew physically you needed to get strong as part of the process. So it was the way that I came into it. But for me, that's what yoga landed, is more because of the emotional, like that emotional health side of it. But really, it's just about taking something that you really love and using it for yourself or sharing it with others if you are going for a program. Thank you so much for sharing your insight on Pilates, and again, giving it off to the audience. Have we confused you? Have we really cleared anything up? Of course, these podcasts are insight and just sharing knowledge, sharing insight, and sharing jokes, really, like, and what human thoughts might be around all of it.
But please help us.
Yeah, really, get a question in there, get a comment in there.
And if there's something else that you'd like to hear about as well, then obviously let us know. So that'd be good.
And actually, on that note, we do have some guest teachers coming in, and we've got a few people that are going to be joining us on these podcasts that have come from different walks of life and different holistic therapies. And we're just going to see how does it all fit together. So it'd be interesting to hear from more people about different things. So as always, thank you for joining. And we hope that everyone's listened in and enjoyed today's podcast.
Yeah, thank you.